Episode is about histamine, and because I have written a couple of articles on Mind Body Green on histamine, and that sparked a lot of questions from my patients and questions from people from online, and so I wanted to talk about this and address it a little bit more. Some people like to hear as opposed to reading the article. So if you are joining me here live, just if you can give me like a thumbs up or something to make sure that I think the voice is working and everything is good. Thank you for being here, and I will be reading your comments, so bring them on or just ask me your questions anytime you go. So thank you for the hearts. All right, so if you're just joining, my name is Noor Zibde. I am an integrative and functional dietitian, and I am in private practice in Virginia, and I do see people all over the country and some outside the US as well. And my specialties, I focus on digestive disorders and digestive conditions such as IBS, which led me to even things like immune reactions and autoimmune conditions. And this is kind of important today because if you think of histamine, it is actually really connected to both the digestive system and the immune system. And histamine is one of those things that I actually hated to suspect, because it was before I learned about it, obviously, is that it was like sort of mysterious and ambiguous, and because there wasn't really concrete testing to know if my patient had a histamine issue or not, it was like a bit of a challenge to manage and identify. Now things are different, of course, and of course with more practice and more experience, I'm able to identify it a lot faster, and I'm screening for it. But what happens with histamine and the people who are dealing with a histamine intolerance is that you are experiencing symptoms that may be completely unrelated. So you may have stomach pain and diarrhea that will take you to your gastro or your primary. You might have headaches, flushing in your skin, rosy skin, that might take you to a dermatologist. You may have itching, and that will take you, like, maybe you're to an allergist, and then you'll have nasal congestion, post-nasal drip and cough, and that may be more like an ENT. So as you can see, histamine is going to affect multiple systems or organs in your body, and sometimes people end up going to multiple doctors and practitioners before they identify it's a histamine issue. And if your provider is not really doesn't have histamine on the back of their mind, they're not thinking about it, it may take you a long time to identify what it is. So that is the problem with histamine. So what is really histamine? Like, people think of histamine as a bad thing. Histamine is actually really important. So it is going to help your body with digestion. So it helps your stomach produce enzymes, the hydrochloric acid, which is really good for you. And if you don't know why hydrochloric acid is good for you, write me a comment, because I'll send you the video or the article about it. I just forgot which one it is right now. And then it is going to tell your body, hey, like, there's an injury, or when there's like a foreign invader, it's going to help your body fight any pathogens or foreign invaders. So it's part of the immune system. It is actually part of the reproductive system. It actually helps you make more, for women, makes more estrogen. So it is important for fertility and reproductive health. It is important to keep you alert and like focused. The problem is when there's too much histamine, then you are too alert and too focused, and then you have anxiety, and you may have headaches. You may end up with flushing in your skin, overactivation of the immune system, because it triggers digestion and muscle contraction. So it's really important, because we want to digest your food. Too much histamine now is going to trigger cramping and stomach pain and diarrhea in some people, because it's over. Actually, I've also seen histamine involved in PMS and period cramps, because the uterus is also a muscle that is contracting, and then when there's too much histamine promoting that, so you're going to have more period cramps. And so, as you can see, it's important, but as a hormone is a chemical in the body, but becomes a problem when there's too much of it. So, like anything in our bodies, there's a fine balance. In the body, we are beautifully created so that our bodies make enough of something, and there are processes or systems in your body to get rid of what is in excess. Now, the problem is when there's too much of histamine, so you're making too much of it or you're ingesting too much of it in food, and the systems that help get rid of it are not working properly, then you have too much more histamine, and then you have too much immune activation and too much of those like the histamine is doing more than it needs to, and then that becomes a problem. So as I said, histamine is a chemical that's released by immune cells. So it's mostly by mast cells, but also other types of basophil neutrophils. But so think of all of those are your immune cells. Now, mast cells are going to be found in many parts of the body, in the digestive system, in the uterus. So they're going to fight anytime there is like a place for a potential foreign invader. You're going to have mast cells there. Now, and that's usually a response to something. The body will release histamine. So that's one way we get histamine. The other way we get, so that's internal creation of histamine, your cells are making it. And then the other part is histamine from outside. So there are certain foods that contain histamine in them. So these are aged foods such as fermented vegetables, pickled vegetables, aged and cured meats. If you drink alcohol, it's going to have high histamine in it. Bone broth, or like if you is going to have histamine. Dried fruit, tomatoes, some types of fish such as sardines and tuna and herring, some beans like soybean, chickpeas, and lentils, vinegars, including raw apple cider vinegar, foods that are moldy or gone bad, and then things with yeast like sourdough bread. So here's what happens. If you are the person who, let's just say you drink alcohol and then after a glass of wine, you immediately, you have flushing or you have a headache, I would think of histamine. If you have been trying to be healthy, so you hear all about these things about healing your gut, that you need to take bone broth and fermented vegetables, and you're adding sauerkraut and yogurt and all of those things, and you feel worse, then you may have a histamine issue. So these are the external sources of histamine. Now there are foods, I forgot also tomatoes, spinach, eggplants, avocado, and mushroom. So there's a bunch of stuff. And then there are foods that are going to make your body produce more histamine. So when the immune cells, when these are around, there's more histamine released from your immune cells. And these are citrus fruit like strawberries, lemon, oranges, papaya, peanuts and walnuts, chocolate, tomatoes, spinach, eggplant, as well as shellfish, and egg whites. So these is, if you eat those foods on a regular basis, then you're actually potentially getting more histamine in your diet, and you're also your body is making more histamine. So Shiraz just joined. What is histamine? So I said that in the beginning. Histamine is a chemical or a hormone, neurotransmitter. It's more like a hormone or chemical that is released from the immune cells. And if you have too much histamine in your body, you're going to have symptoms like headaches, migraines, redness in the cheeks or flushing, stomach pain, diarrhea, vertigo. You may have low blood pressure, sweating out of nowhere, asthma, congestion, postnasal drip, coughing, all kinds of skin issues as well too, and sometimes also muscle pain, insomnia, and vertigo or dizziness. So I guess where were we? So you can have more histamine from food, and I do have that list. I'm gonna put the article link in the comments section. So the problem also that there are foods that will block your mechanism for processing histamine. There are foods that will block this. So the way your body processes histamine is through two enzymes, and one is called DAO and diamine oxidase, and then the other one is called N-methyl diamine transferase, which is going, the first one is going to get rid of histamine in your intestine, and the other one is going to get rid of the excess histamine that you make now internally. Now the problem is, if you are not making, there are certain foods that are going to block this enzyme from working, and these foods include alcohol, first thing, but also coffee and tea and energy drinks. So if you are heavy on those, then histamine could build up in your body. So with histamine building up your body, you're going to have these symptoms. So what do you do about those? First of all, cutting histamine foods from your diet is probably the best way to identify if you have histamine issues or not. If you get on and take these foods out for about 2 weeks and see, do you feel better? Do all of those symptoms that I mentioned feel better? Then you're onto something, and it may be a histamine issue. Now, you may think that you want to get an antihistamine medication, but for a lot of people these stopped working, or like you start depending on them. And I find that with my patients, when we're working on their gut, and I'll tell you why the gut is related to histamine, is that they're using less and less of these antihistamine medications, and plus, it's not recommended for long term. But the way the gut and histamine are related is that your digestive system is the intestinal cells were going to produce an enzyme called DAO, diamine oxidase, which is the enzyme that is going to break down the histamine in your food. So if you want to enjoy all of these foods that I listed, and there's a bunch of them that contain histamine, your body has to make this enzyme, and so that it breaks it down. All right, well, great. What stops your body from making this enzyme? You may be genetically predisposed to it, and that is something we cannot change. But even if your gene is dirty, I'm reading Dr. Ben Lynch's book Dirty Genes, and he calls a gene that is born mutated dirty, but also you could get your gene to be dirty by bad lifestyle or dysbiosis or pathogens in your gut. So if you are born with a gene that's malfunctioning, you can support your body. But some people don't have problem with the gene, and they are not making enough of that enzyme because they have dysbiosis, because they have wrong bacteria in their gut, because they have yeast or H. pylori or SIBO or E. coli or C. diff or any toxin in their gut that's causing inflammation and irritation. So the body is not making enough DAO enzyme. So that's why when we start to fix the gut, then we start to see that cells are recovering their function and they're making more of that enzyme, so you're able to tolerate more and more of these foods. So the last thing I ever want is to tell people, like, here's a list of 15 or 20 foods that you never eat if you want to live without headaches and itchy skin and to get rid of your postnasal drip. Maybe we try that in the beginning, and that's one way to calm the immune system. And I find that a lot of people are able to significantly reduce their symptoms when we're doing the deeper work. We are identifying what is wrong with their gut. Why isn't their gut working properly? And then we're gonna build on that. Now, there are certain nutrients that can help boost the DAO enzyme and stabilize how much DAO is being, how much histamine your immune cells are making. So like things like vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc. But before we start adding vitamins and minerals, if you have problems with digestion, if you have problems with your gut, all of those vitamins and minerals that you're adding, they're not going to be fully absorbed and utilized. So we really like that. If you really want to get to the core of it, identifying what is going on with your gut, what is growing in your gut that shouldn't be there, and then we fix that. Short term, we do the diet. Short term, there are some DAO enzyme supplements, and some people benefit from those. So if you want to eat a high histamine food, you can have those. But a word of caution, if you are a vegetarian or if you don't eat pork products, the only enzymes available on the market are derived from pork. So from pigs, so just kind of that disclaimer. Now, there's one thing I also wanted to say. Oh, some also be careful with probiotics. Some probiotics, some strains of bacteria are going to produce histamine in your gut. So if you've also taken a probiotic supplement and you feel like your symptoms are worse, this may be what is happening. So let me see if I have any questions that I didn't answer. Is an elimination diet for 2 weeks, that's the only way to find out if you have histamine issues? I think that's the best way, and that's the easiest and fastest way, to be honest. There are some tests for histamine, but the histamine is short-lived, so you may not catch it. And also, like, if you are on like prednisone or any steroids, like some people with these symptoms, they end up on steroid medications to deal with the symptoms, to lessen the symptoms. So that will also reduce histamine production. So it doesn't really identify, like you may do it and get a normal value, but if you're on a steroid medication, then that could be a false low or dampened. There's one company that I know of that does histamine test and also measures the enzyme activity, and it's useful if I feel like if I'm still not able to know with just a diet alone. So yeah, so if you are with the probiotics, we talked about that. And keep it all with the bigger perspective, is that stress and like exercise, just lifestyle, everything is going to affect their immune cells, and food sensitivities as well too. So even if you follow like an antihistamine diet, but if you have other food sensitivities, because food sensitivities are reactions of the immune system and immune cells. So really, like the best way is to eliminate those histamine foods. But if you really want a comprehensive approach, the best way is to really identify what is the pathogen that's growing. Do you have the leaky gut? Do you have any of those that are creating constant problems in your gut? Eliminating foods that you're sensitive to, eliminating histamine foods, and then taking it from there. So I hope that gave you some answers. If you experience a group of symptoms that you're not really sure what they are, I hope this, and if they are some of the symptoms that are related to histamine, I hope that sparked something and give you an idea for what may be happening. And a lot of times it's people who are eating healthy and eating the aged and fermented foods and the bone broth and adding the probiotics who end up discovering that they have histamine issues as well too. So if you're having a hard time, if you need help navigating this, or other food sensitivities that you have, or digestive issues such as stomach pain, bloating, autoimmune conditions, or food sensitivities, this is what I do. This is how I help my patients. So feel free to reach out if you want more information about working with me or ordering these tests and understanding what's going on in your gut. Just put me a comment in the comment section, and I will direct you for more information. And I do offer a free call for people who are interested in potentially getting my help. So I hope this was helpful. I'll see you next time.